Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome into the show. This is Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports, and here's what we have coming up. Does Joel Embiid want a reunion with Jimmy Butler? Why Ricky Council needs to step up for Philadelphia, and Justin Edwards impressed against the Brooklyn Nets. We're going to dive into all of this, but before we do that, Adam Silver told us every like that we get on this video is one all-star vote for Tyrese Maxey. So we need as many people as possible to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. Let's talk about Jimmy Butler here. He had this weird post-game press conference where pretty much he said, I went out from Miami. It was very similar to what he did with his tactics to get sent out of Chicago and sent from Minnesota to Philadelphia. And now he's suspended 7 games for conduct detrimental to the team by the Miami Heat. You never really want to mess around with Pat Riley. Jimmy Butler did, and he did find out. FAFO, the real ones know. And now reports have surfaced that Joel Embiid actually pushed the Sixers to trade for Jimmy Butler last summer. And we know these two are very close. Vincent Goodwill, Yahoo Sports with this, and I think it's obviously an interesting report to hit now, even though it has to do with the summertime. But now that Jimmy Butler is available, could we see a Paul George for Jimmy Butler swap? Here's what Goodwill had to say. Over the summer, Philadelphia tried to engage Miami on a Butler deal before agreeing to terms with Paul George. Joel Embiid wanted that reunion with Butler, and he pushed for it, according to sources who spoke to Yahoo Sports over the summer and recently. This is now causing Sixers fans to wonder, and I've had a lot of people reach out to me on social media asking this question. Could the Sixers trade for Jimmy Butler after his trade request? The latest on Jimmy. On January 2nd, he officially requested a trade. Butler did not give the Heat a list of destinations, and he's open to playing anywhere, contrary to what Shams Charania has said. And Jimmy Butler's agent, Shams, they've kind of gone back and forth, and Shams has said, I stand definitively behind my reporting. And then Jimmy Butler was suspended 7 games by Miami for that conduct detrimental to the team. Here's what Butler said about playing in Miami. I want to see me getting my joy back playing basketball. Wherever that may be, we'll find out here pretty soon. I'm happy here off the court, but I want to be back to somewhat dominant. I want to hoop, and I want to help this team win, and right now I'm not doing it. So interesting stuff from Jimmy Butler given the verbiage. The Heat heard that and said, you know what? We're suspending you the next several games, and that could buy them time to trade him away. But Chip, I don't think Sixers fans should get their hopes up. The only way a Jimmy trade happens is if it's a Paul George for Jimmy Butler swap, which I don't know makes a lot of sense for either side here.
Yeah. So, look, Jimmy Butler, on the surface, I think, probably playing better than Paul George is, right? I'm not saying, one for one, I wouldn't take Jimmy Butler for Paul George, certainly, but when you look at each team situation, like the Sixers spent all last season gearing up, getting ready to go after Paul George in the offseason, right? They give him this big deal, 4-year contract. Would it make sense to then ship out Paul George? Because it would have to be a one for one. Ship out Paul George for, the rest of the season of Jimmy Butler and then hope you can re-sign him in the offseason. That's a big, big risk.
Yeah.
Considering you just, went all in on Maxey and Embiid and Paul George. So, can you really risk that he might leave? And then for Miami, it's like they do want to remain competitive, and I think them getting Paul George would help them remain competitive, but they didn't want to commit to Jimmy Butler long-term this past offseason. They didn't want to give him, $110 million over 2 years because he was aging, give him all that long-term money. Why would they want to do that with Paul George, who just signed that 4-year big-time deal? Now, look, I'm never going to count Daryl Morey out when it comes to doing something like this because we know he's one to swing for the fences and make big-time moves. And, look, we know that Joel Embiid would love to play with Jimmy Butler again. I think Butler would like to play with Embiid again. It'd be surprising to me if the Heat and the Sixers were kind of down to make a move like this, but it is, I guess, a possibility financially. It could work out. I just don't really see the Sixers making sort of a panic move like that, which I think it would be after just half a season of Paul George. Even though it is Jimmy, I get it, but just so many risks with him. He's obviously older as well, but also the expiring deal. Just wouldn't really expect it to happen.
Yeah, and you think back to the Paul George signing. If Jimmy Butler and Paul George were both available at the same time, I think a lot of Sixers fans would have wanted to go after Jimmy Butler. I think Joel Embiid clearly would have wanted to go after Jimmy Butler. Butler wasn't available, though. And Chip and I talked about that. Like, do you sign Paul George now, or do you wait to see what happens with Jimmy Butler? That was a risk because what if the Heat started off well, and then Jimmy Butler's not available for a trade? But the Heat never signed him to that extension. Now Jimmy doesn't feel as though he's wanted with Miami. He's not happy, so he's looking to continue his career elsewhere. If you were Daryl Morey, would you trade Paul George for Jimmy Butler? T for trade, P for pass. Sound off with what you think down in the comments section. We always love hearing from you. 2 more topics to get to here. Why Ricky Council needs to step up, and Justin Edwards, the kid, impressing against Brooklyn. Before we do that, today's show sponsored by our friends at Game Time, the best app in the ticketing marketplace. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets easier to events. We're talking concerts, comedy shows, theater events, sporting events, and a whole lot more. And what it does is filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so that you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. And I love Game Time for a multitude of reasons. You get the best seats at the lowest price guaranteed. Prices drop as the event gets closer. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. On-time ticket delivery, lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. Make sure you toggle the all-in pricing tool. Therefore, you don't get hit with any surprise fees at checkout. And so download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create that account, use that code CHATSPORTS. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. As for Ricky Council, time to step up. Showed some flashes throughout his first couple of years, and now it's time for him to put it all together. And you look at his first 2 years in the NBA since being that UDFA pickup by Philadelphia last year, 9 minutes per game, 5.5 points, 48% from the field, 37.5% from three. This year, minutes up to 12.5, points per game the same, assists nearly the same, rebounds up, field goal numbers down, 3-point numbers down. Here's what Bleacher Report said about Ricky Council. He's carved out a spot for himself in the Sixers rotation, even when the stars on this team are healthy. With star rookie Jared McCain sidelined by that torn meniscus, veteran guard Eric Gordon struggling this year, Sixers need Council to step up as a wing who can defend and knock down open shots. Ricky has the tools, and with the athleticism that he possesses, we know that he can defend. This year, though, Chip, he's not really showing it on offense, and with those open looks, that's where he struggled a little bit.
Yeah, and I was just hoping to see more out of him so far this season. I was pretty high on him coming out off of last year in the Summer League where he really did flash, but, inconsistent minutes to start the year, and he's been in the rotation more, but just hasn't quite progressed, I think, as much as you'd hope. No, it's still very early in his career. Not saying that if he doesn't put it all together this year, he's done, but I think you were hoping for him to at least take a leap from year 1 to year 2, especially from outside. Just hasn't really done that. And we saw games like last year against the Spurs, the Wizards, and he showed an ability to attack the rim and be this good scorer, fast break, stuff like that. This year, he still has moments where he looks out of control, just playing too fast, and if that outside shot's not falling, not really making the impact you'd hope. So, with the injuries to, of course, to McCain, Eric Gordon's been in and out of the lineup and hasn't been great when he's been in there, and then, Kyle Lowry, statistically, has been one of the worst defenders in the NBA, actually, this season.
Yeah.
And then Reggie Jackson, just kind of, up and down. That's someone I really want to rely on. You could really use Ricky Council to step up and put it together and play well. And right now, I just don't think I'm seeing that from him, despite him starting to get a little bit more of an opportunity.
Yeah, and we were calling for Ricky Council to get more minutes and a bigger opportunity this offseason, and I think that note down there kind of says it all. Has the tools, time for him to show it, especially with kind of a stubborn coach like Nick Nurse. Like, he's basically saying, I'll give you your opportunity. You better prove it to me. If you don't, we're moving on. As for Justin Edwards, impressive showing in his first meaningful NBA minutes. He played well in that win over the Brooklyn Nets over the weekend on Saturday. 4 of 7 from the field, 3 of 6 from three, 11 points total, 5 rebounds in 23 minutes of action. could have been a little bit of a mirage, but for him to play that well, caused you to turn your head a little bit, open up your eyes and say, could he be a rotation player at some point? He has been playing well in the G League. It always amazes me how bad the G League competition is and how great the numbers are that players put up. Then they come to the NBA and they don't look like NBA players. But remember, with Edwards, he was a 5-star recruit. He has some pedigree, and it does get you thinking. Could at some point, Chip, he tap into that pedigree, that potential, and become a little bit of a diamond in the rough?
Yeah, certainly good to see him playing well. It's so funny you said about the G League. Like, I think he has like 2 or 3 30-point games already in the G League.
Yeah.
Just like literally guys can end of the rotation guys in the NBA just come in and dominate in the G League. But you'd rather see him playing well than not, even at that level. And I think Nick Nurse throwing him out there when Justin Edwards even said, like, I didn't even know I was going to be getting out there, and he ended up playing a good chunk of minutes. Like, he was in the Sacramento game a little bit, came in, guarded DeMar DeRozan. Like, so he's been getting a little bit of run, but extended run against the Nets. And look, the Nets might be a G League team of their own right now. Cam Johnson didn't play. Cam Thomas didn't play. Like, they're an awful roster. Traded Dorian Finney-Smith. D'Lo's hurt. Like, that's a terrible roster. But, he played well, and I like to see him knocking down the three. I wouldn't, count on him really being any meaningful part of the rotation the rest of this season. But, for a guy that undrafted, the only top 3 recruit to ever go undrafted. Absolutely crazy. He has it in there somewhere. Maybe this team can get it out of him, but I would doubt that really happens much. And he makes much of an impact this year, but still good to see the hometown kid playing well.
Yeah, no doubt. Hometown ties as well. 5-star went to Kentucky, played there under John Calipari, did not get drafted here in the 2024 NBA draft. Before we dip on out of here, don't forget to hit that sub button for year-round coverage of the Sixers. Now that we're approaching the deadline, kind of the back half of the regular season, things will really start to ramp up, and we have you covered right here on this show.